This is Action and Ambition, the show that takes you all over the world to share interviews with the most successful and relevant people on the planet. Hear their backstory, get the most important lessons they've learned on their road to success, and hear exclusive tips on how to implement their success in your own life. Action and Ambition is brought to you by Entrepreneur Magazine and your host, Andrew Metal.
Oh, hello. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I say good morning to you because it's become a big internal joke at Entrepreneur over here. I say good morning partly due to my Southern upbringing and the formality that my parents instilled upon me. But I also say good morning because I never actually know where my guests are or what time it is, wherever they are in the world. So where are you currently and what time is it right now?
It is 2:00 and I'm in Utah. So if you would have contacted me yesterday, I'm still experiencing some jet lag, a 9-hour time difference, but I'm back in Utah and ready to roll.
Well, it might feel like morning to you still then,
Yeah,
even though it's afternoon. But I do appreciate you taking the time, especially after just returning from an international trip, to spend 30 minutes with us today. For the purposes of the listeners, though, tell us your name and a little bit about the work you do.
Yeah, my name is Bennett Maxwell, and my main focus right now is franchising through a cookie company called Dirty Dough that I acquired just over a year ago. So we're really pushing the franchises, but I really wanted to jump into an industry that I hadn't been in before. So I bought an existing business and really trying to, it's been very beneficial to jump in without any prior food experience and see it with fresh eyes. Not, this is how I learned how to do it, but it's like, let's figure it out from scratch. Well, so that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Tell me about your previous background and experience, both in culinary arts and in the franchising space. It looks like you have other businesses and have done other things, but I'm trying to find some information related to franchise activities.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this.
You're not going to find any.
Okay.
So I have, my background is sales. I've been doing door-to-door sales, leading teams, did pest control, did security, did satellite, did solar. And then I moved out. I've been living in San Diego the last few years. Did a solar company there, teamed up with my brother. We started that in January of 2020. And we built it to try to work ourselves out of the business as quickly as possible. So within a year, we'd pretty well done that. We didn't have much responsibilities. And that's when I jumped in and I bought Dirty Dough. So that was January of 2021. And then I ended up selling that business in June. So we sold it in just under 18 months for a good little profit there. And that's when I jumped full time into Dirty Dough. But yeah, but before that, it was just sales training, leadership, recruiting. And then I saw this opportunity with the cookies. There's another company called Crumble, and they've been taken off. So I'm like, somebody's got to give them a little bit of run for their money.
Well, so how were you first exposed to the brand, and what was the sort of immediate impact on you with realizing that, you could grow this thing?
Going back to that my cousin's heavily involved with Crumble cookies. He's owned some franchises, owns in the business. And I started looking into cookies because he's bringing me in. He's like, dude, there's a lot of money in cookies. And I had no idea. I mean, and franchising in general, right? But I was already, committed to going doing some solar. I couldn't buy a franchise because they already sold out of Utah and they required you to live there. And I'm like, I'm not going to go move to, Tennessee to have, make my career into cookies. So I kind of passed on the opportunity. Then I just saw somebody post on Facebook. They were looking for some investment money. They had an existing cookie company, gave him a little bit of money. He opened up the shop and then I wanted him to franchise and I was going to be his first franchisee. He drug his feet a lot. And then he's like, I'm actually burnt out. I'm thinking about selling the company. So I thought, let's give this a run. So purchased the company, and right from the get-go, it's just how to from one location to 1,000 locations and trying to bring on the right team members, people that have been there, done that, had several hundred locations, 1,000 locations, and brought them on. So again, having that end in mind has definitely helped us a lot. So right now we franchised in December. So we're 5-6 months in, and we've sold 59 franchises, some mobile units, most of them are traditional retails. So yeah, coming out of the gate swinging. We have our first 4 opening by the end of this month. and about 4 scheduled every month thereafter.
Wow, that's amazing. What does your team look like as far as franchise support, operationally, marketing? So what are you leading as the sort of owner and operator?
Yeah, the key is Jill Summer Hayes. So she started a company called Maui Wowie Smoothies and Coffee. And she grew that. I mean, that was the first ever mobile franchise in existence. That was back in the 80s. And she ran that for 35 years, grew it to just under 700 locations, then sold it off. Took another brand from 1 to 90 in a few years. So I brought her on end of November, brought on someone that runs our warehouse. So we're doing a centralized production. Again, we really want to see how can we get this to, 1,000, 2,000. We have to make it as simple as possible and have the quality control kind of guaranteed. Jill calls it, monkey proof. So that's the whole scenario that we're doing. So we brought everything into a centralized facility here in Utah, and then we're shipping out these pre-portioned dough pucks that have 2 and 3 layer cookies. So you break open a cookie, it looks like, let's say, a chocolate cookie. You break it open, there's a chocolate chip cookie in the middle, and in the very center, there's caramel. So it's a very unique cookie. These are 3 layer cookies that don't exist anywhere else. But because we've centralized it, we get a lot lower cost of goods. And then we do all of our quality control at a corporate level. And then everything's done by machines rather than made by hand. So our labor is, comparing ourselves to the competition, right? We're less than half the cost to open up, a lot less to operate, less than half the labor, while giving them that guaranteed quality control. So that's, again, the mentality is, how do we make this? How do we get somebody? Because I was denied a franchise, right? Because I didn't want to go move to another state and run a franchise. So how do we provide a good investment opportunity to others that they can invest a little bit more passively, right? It's still a business. There's still things to do, but what we've done so far, we've been selling, 3 at a time, or a group of 5, or somebody bought 10, somebody bought 12. So the only way you can operate that many is if the systems are in place, and it's very simple. So our stores, you get a frozen dough puck, you throw it in the oven, they're being baked fresh every single hour, and then you're serving them to customers. So when the timer goes off, take out the cookies or you've messed up, but we've just tried to make it as simple as possible.
And so are you keeping a similar model where you're not allowing absentee or semi-absentee owners? Do all owners live and operate in the markets where they open?
They do not. For the majority, a lot of them do. We just require them to have a really good operator in that market. So when I bought the business, because again, it's kind of proof is in the pudding. I was living in San Diego. This business was in Arizona. So I was running it from out of state with no franchise experience, no food experience, never been in that industry, but I figured it out. And now I'm giving that game plan to others. So we do not require that.
That's amazing. Talk to me about sort of investment opportunity, fees, licenses. Obviously you filed an FDD recently. Right. What could potential investors look to as far as costs for initial startup, and then, year from now?
Yeah. So right now we're doing, it's about 200 grand to open one of these out the door. And between SBA loans and equipment financing, it could be very little actual cash. So your ROI on that is really good. Now with the franchise laws, I have to be careful making claims of all the income and stuff. But the numbers look great. And that's why we've been able to sell so many. With only one existing store, we've sold 59 stores. It's because of the model. And we're very profitable, even if it doesn't sell that many, if it doesn't need a $2 million sales like some of these the competitors are doing. If it does $500,000 at a 20% margin, you're at a 50% ROI. So that's what we've been basing it off of. Now I think we are definitely going to get up there, and we're on that trajectory. But even if we don't, it's a very conservative play, because you don't need 10 people in the store. You need 1 or 2, right? You need it 700, 800 square feet. Your lease is very, very low cost. So the goal was to give investors a model that doesn't require a ton of time, but it also is going to be around here for the recessions, right? Like a Mrs. Fields, they've been around for 40 years. Well, they do this centralized production. We compare that to a Crumble, and Crumble's sales are double or triple what a Mrs. Fields are, because they have these big, huge cookies. They're rotating every single week. It's a very big novelty item. So we thought, okay, well, can we use the robust system of a Mrs. Fields, but still do, this great marketing, these giant crazy cookies with weekly rotating flavors of a Crumble, and get the high sales of a Crumble with the the low operating costs of a Mrs. Fields. So that's what we've been developing. And I think that we've been doing a really good job out of it.
And so describe the current footprint. And I asked that question specifically related to, do you let the markets dictate what flavors they are ordering, or as a franchise organization, are they required to carry all flavors that you produce?
Yeah, so we do 4 weekly rotating flavors, and that's dictated at a corporate level. So we have a flavor drop every Friday, and then those are the new flavors for the week. And then we have 2 permanent cookies. So everybody has to have the 2 permanent cookies, and then the 4 weekly rotating flavors. And then it's the same throughout, anywhere you're going.
And footprint. So you had a location in Arizona, and you've sold 59 locations, 59 licenses currently. Where are you opening? Where can listeners expect to find you?
So we have our first 4 coming up here in Utah by the end of this month. So I think maybe 30, about half of those are in Utah. And then we're doing some in Denver, Vegas, a lot more in Arizona, up in Idaho. We're about to do another 15 out in kind of the Midwest region. And we're just about to open up Florida and Texas, because we've had, I don't know, dozens of people on our waiting list. So just wanted to make sure that we're ready, which we're pretty much ready. So I think we'll have about 35 stores open by the end of the year. And we'll be out there on the East Coast by about this time next year.
Oh, that's fantastic. Talk to me about timing. Obviously, this past weekend, Mother's Day, a big potential sales event. Are you seeing certain trends in, obviously, the market where you're currently open, where you're seeing an uptick of sales just organically?
Yeah, these cookies, a lot of them, when we dive into the TikTok and all of those trends, when you open up one of these cookies, again, they just don't exist. And we have one little location with 10,000 followers maybe on TikTok, and you throw a video on there without, I don't know, we started TikTok just a few months ago. So with nothing, it grew pretty quick, but we'd get views that had 1 million and 2 million and then 5 million, just showing somebody opening up a cookie. So we've been very fortunate, just following some of the trends. You throw on a little bit of music on there and you open up a cookie, or you mix up some dough, and people love it. People eat it up, and the algorithms, I guess, love it as well, because we get a lot of views. And then I was in the store maybe a few months ago, and somebody came in and, hey, how'd you hear about us? And, oh, I saw you guys on TikTok. I flew into Colorado just to try your cookie. Like, you flew from Colorado to Phoenix just to try a cookie? She's like, yeah, I've never seen a cookie like that. So that it's definitely been helping us.
Well, that's amazing. I imagine the phrase "they ate it up" refers both to the cookies and the content you create. Talk to me about the content in social. How does that play into your mix of marketing and acquiring new clients?
It's very social media focused. So right when I bought the company, kind of like a little trial run, I was out in the San Diego area, northern San Diego County. It's called San Marcos. Most people have never heard of it. It's not some bumping city or anything like that, kind of close to Carlsbad. And I thought, let's just open up. Like, within a month of me opening and buying the company, I'm like, let's open up a commercial kitchen. So there was an actual retail storefront. I hired 3 employees, just thinking, this is going to go very slow and we're getting traction. We weren't doing any paid marketing. We just had somebody out of the Philippines. I work with a lot of people, kind of going back to that answer of the team. It's led by, a really strong CEO with a lot of experience, a lot of other really high caliber people, but a lot of low labor, high caliber people overseas. So I hired somebody out of the Philippines. We're paying them maybe $5-6 an hour. They were messaging people on Instagram, anybody with over 5,000 followers, hey, you can get a free cookie if you come and post it. And that's all we did. And we blew up our first month. There was maybe 26 brands in this shared kitchen. And again, no marketing other than just messaging people on Instagram. We were the number 1 out of all the 26 in that first month.
Wow.
So yeah, the social media really, really helps. Other people posting the pictures and then tagging their friends and all that. And then everybody wants to come try it, because again, it's a unique product. So it's not something like, oh, let me go try a different cookie. It's like, oh, let me go try a 3-layer cookie. What the hell is a 3-layer cookie? So
that's amazing.
It's been good.
Just talk me through rough numbers. I mean, you send out how many messages, how many people open, reply, how many take advantage of the free opportunity, and then how many people come back as a returning customer?
Our return customer rate is around 23% right now. And man, I need to go measure that again, because that was a little while ago. before we actually started doing paid ads and paid marketing. So we would send that message. I don't have all of those numbers out there. I would say 90% of them, people who were offered to come get a cookie, they came and got their free cookie. And then they would post on it. I mean, we were just asking them to do a quick story, but yeah, I would say about 90% of the people were just sharing a quick story. And then as far as numbers like sales, what we did our first month was 32,000 in sales.
Wow.
That's delivery only. So when you go from a delivery only to an actual storefront, you typically see a 3 or 4x in sales. That's what our company did out in Tempe. That's what a lot of these other competitors have done as well, because I know I think it would have been a really strong, 6-figure first month if we actually had a retail. And hey, if we actually did marketing, maybe it would be better.
Well, I would say you're doing pretty well without those things. Talk to me about the timing. What an interesting time to open a brick and mortar location.
I know, right?
For a place. How did COVID impact your business? Obviously, you said recession proof. I'm guessing potentially now you might add pandemic proof to your pitch model. But talk to me about why opening then, now, and then, how things are going.
So our storefront opened in Tempe in March of 2020. So the grand opening was scheduled the week that the government closure started. So we never had a grand opening. Even to this day, we haven't had a grand opening because it got shut down. So that definitely, pushed us down a little bit. But at the same time, a third of our business is delivery anyway. So it wasn't that big of a deal. This isn't dining. Even the in-person, orders, it's a grab and go. So they come grab it and they're gone. They're not eating it in the store. So I would say COVID overall was beneficial to us because it put all these stressors on the market, right? It put supply chain stressors on the market, put labor stressors on the market. Well, if everybody has labor issues, but we use half the labor that you use, yeah, it hurts us, but hurts us half the amount. So it actually is a benefit. If all of the food costs are rising and supply chains, are a mess, but we're centralizing production, we get better pricing. And same thing, again, we're centralizing production. So we can manage that on a corporate level rather than every single store. You have to go figure it out yourself. It hurts everybody, but hurts us the least. So helped us out. And then obviously there's a lot of government programs like the PPP loan, the employment tax retention credit that helped a ton. They had an EIDL loan. So if any of the listeners haven't taken advantage of all three of those, that is basically free money sitting and waiting for you. So we did a lot of that. We did some R&D tax credits, but overall the COVID stuff, I think really did help us more than anybody could have predicted.
Well, that's great. Obviously, let's not rely on COVID going forward as a big benefit for you as a growth hack, but talk to me about some of the lessons you've learned. Are there 2, 3, 4, 5? I don't know if you want to give us 20. That's great too. Lessons that you've learned that, maybe looking back, you'd think, oh, I would have done this differently, or I'm so glad I knew this in advance that I did this. Anything from obviously hiring the right people for your team to some of the other lessons you've touched on. What are some of the big takeaways that you would share with listeners?
Yeah, I would say if you're jumping into something, so jumping back into sales, without any sales experience, you look at an organization, Vivint, that's who one of the companies I sold for. They had 5,000 sales reps going door to door. So you have people that are selling hundreds and hundreds of accounts in a 4-month period and making, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in 4 months. And they're doing the same thing that you're doing. So I would always look at them and think to myself, what are they doing that I can't learn? And I've taken that mindset into Dirty Dough, but not even saying I have to learn everything myself. I have to just either have to, learn what Mrs. Fields is doing or Crumble Cookies, or hire somebody that already does. So that's where I think the big advantage and the explosive growth is coming from, is we're getting people that have been there, done that. We built a really strong board of advisors that have same thing. They're franchisors of hundreds of franchisees. So we have a lot of the experience that it's not just me with no experience, trying to run the show, but it's me building the team of people that know what they're doing. And that's my core value as being an entrepreneur. It's kind of the, if you've ever heard of the E-Myth book, the E-Myth Revisited, it's all about most entrepreneurs aren't true business owners, right? They own their own job, but it's a shitty job because you work the hardest and you get paid last.
Mhm.
So if you can't step out and go to Greece for 2 weeks, then you're not, you just have a job. You just own your own job. So it's all about you start a business. And then again, we did this with the solar business and it worked out really well. I was able to build it and sell it within 18 months. And it's kind of silly, but you say, okay, what is my organization to look like in 5 years? And you do your whole org chart and you just put your head in every single position. So it's kind of like, why am I doing this? Well, and then you work on each position. Okay, well, what's the sales reps going to do? And then you fulfill, like, here's all my standard operating procedures for the sales rep. Now I'm going to hire that sales rep. Now what's the manager going to do? Now what's the finance person going to do? What's the bookkeeper going to do? What's the regional salesperson going to do? And then you work yourself out of that business as quickly as possible until you have a business that doesn't require you to work in it per se, but rather on it, that you can have the time to be doing these podcasts, things like that, and really promoting it on a higher level rather than me going in there and mixing the cookies. Because I can tell you, I don't know if I'd be good, but I probably would not be good at mixing cookies. Still haven't done it, but I don't think I need to do it.
The idea of working on the business opposed to working in the business. I love
exactly.
that. And I love what you said about what are they doing that I can't learn? I think that's an amazing phrase. I'm wondering if you have another personal mantra or phrase that you go back to related to business that you think of often.
The reason I got into sales, it was Cutco knives. Have you ever heard of those things?
Of course.
And I got all dressed
Vector
up.
marketing.
Yeah. Went and did my interview, got accepted. And they're like, hey, now it's time to train. I was like, cool. How much do I get paid for training? And they're like, nothing. And I'm like, screw you guys. This is a scam. What do you mean I'm going to go train? So I tell my dad, hey, I'm not going to take this job. And he's like, why not? I'm like, well, I'm not going to go put in 40 hours for $0. You know, I could go back to my shaved ice stand because this was in high school. And he's like, well, no, you're thinking about it all wrong. There's a lot of people that pay tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn the skill and the profession of sales. If they're going to give that to you for free, then that's worth it, even if you don't take the job. And then that just changed my mindset. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he talks about work to learn, not to earn. So that's been my kind of philosophy, always work to learn, not to earn. And man, the money always follows, but try to gain the most amount of knowledge in your field. So it kind of ties into that other, what are they doing that I can't learn? But it's all about learning and bettering yourself rather than, in sales, when you're knocking doors and it's 100% commission and you don't get a sell that day, you're mad if you're focused on sales and money. But if you focused on what are my communication skills and did those improve today? What did I learn today? Then that allows you to take that to the next day without wanting to go home.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I wanted to ask you as sort of my final question, what are the things you've learned or would change about franchise organizations, having been on the outside and now obviously running one?
What I would change about franchise organizations, I would want to make them as simple as possible. I think there's so many franchisees that jump into businesses and they jump into like, oh, I'm going to go buy this big name brand because, they're a big name brand. But man, there's a lot of franchises that fail because it's still, you have to be a good business owner. So I would say that in general, franchises should be structured a lot more entrepreneur friendly to get somebody that doesn't know how to run a McDonald's, right? But gives them all the pieces, all the tools that they need, rather than just here's a playbook, go figure it out. But it's like, here's your playbook and here's every single person that you're going to need to set up this business. Mm-hmm. And then here's the business model that you're not managing 50 employees or 100 employees. You're only managing a few employees, and therefore, you can replicate that and scale it on, on a franchisee basis. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we're hoping for is all these first franchisees, they're going to get all their money back and they're going to dump it into buying more and more and more. And then now you have a really strong passive income of, a dozen or so stores. They can either keep that and pass that on to future generations, or you can package it up and sell it to a private equity for a big exit. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would like to see a little bit more of in the franchise world, is a little bit more support from the franchisors. And that's what we're trying to provide.
How does the system set them up for success? Fantastic. Yeah. Well, I know listeners today will be very interested in contacting you personally and reaching out about franchise opportunities. email, LinkedIn, phone, Instagram, TikTok. I know you mentioned. What's the best way for people to find out more about you?
Best way is I have a website, Bennett Maxwell, Bennett, Maxwell.com. And there you can come, inquire about franchise information or follow me on social media. I also throw out a in the trenches report about every other week of just what's going good in the business, what's going bad in the business, and try to be as transparent and authentic as possible. So people want to follow me, that's the best way.
Fantastic. Well, I will make sure people listen. I will definitely be listening and checking in on that. Bennett, I can't thank you enough for your time. We hope to have you back, and we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Action and Ambition with your host, Andrew Metal. Please leave a review and subscribe, and go to andrewmetal.com for all the exclusive lessons, behind-the-scenes footage, and video content of the show. Follow us on Facebook and YouTube at Action and Ambition, and we'll see you on the next episode.